in the National Assembly in the French Revolution, there was a point before the Terror where they were debating what they were going to do about the monarchists and the counter-revolutionaries and the conspirators within their ranks. Very similar to what's happening now. Very similar. And I can't remember which one it was, but whoever was leading the House that day got up and was like, okay, well, terror is the order of the day. And that was literally how he framed it. So we are going to terrorize them in submission. And I think that's what's going to happen now to Trump supporters. Domestic terror operations are going to be the order of the day. As Reason report, with Americans still reeling from the January 6th Capitol riot, the Biden administration will begin its term amid a rapidly escalating, tough on domestic terror mood. After 9/11, Biden did not just vote for the Patriot Act, he claimed that it was essentially the same legislation he had been pushing since 1994. Jeff Bennett, NBC's White House correspondent, says the Biden administration plans to make domestic terrorism a key focus of the National Security Council, transitional officials tell us. Officials have been looking at ways to shift government resources previously used for counterterrorism to combating domestic terrorism. So that's good. So less resources on jihadi terrorism or any kind of, international terrorism. More resources spent on calling Trump supporters white supremacists and terrorists. Evan Hill of the New York Times, says former intelligence official on PBS NewsHour Tonight, says that US should think about a 9/11 commission for domestic extremism and consider applying some of the lessons from the fight against Al-Qaeda here at home. So literally, they want to treat MAGA as if they are ISIS. It's insane.
This, in my understanding, I mean, I'm sure there's someone who knows better, but this is actually part of the reason that 9/11 ended up happening, is that the Clinton administration wanted to pull away from having to deal with stuff abroad to deal with stuff at home. And it meant that they didn't have their eye on the ball with jihadist terror, which then led to the opening of, people being able to engage in terrorism without having the correct scrutiny.
Sure.
Surely the same thing's going to happen then. If they spend their time wasting time with MAGA people, like the international terrorists who do want to bring down America as well, I don't agree that the MAGA people do, but let's just say if they were actually going after, people who did, they're not going to have their eye on the jihadist terrorists.
No.
Then what? Like, as soon as we get the next 9/11...
There are going to be more 9/11s.
Are we going to admit that there's a fault, or what?
But even then, that's just a practical concern, right? It's like, the allocation of resources. I'm more concerned about the sort of moral implications of pathologizing at least a third of the nation as being terrorists on par with Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
I mean, I don't see them explicitly saying that MAGA... I mean, it's pretty well implied.
They don't need to.
Don't get me wrong.
Well, I mean, I haven't even got to that part yet, okay? So I will show you where they're explicitly saying that these people are the problem, right? But this is a real problem. This is disgusting. Like, this is not my fellow Americans. This is us versus you. This is, again, setting the stage for civil war.
It's a redefinition of my fellow Americans.
Well, yeah, mine means not you,
Yeah.
A Washington Post columnist Max Boot says Biden needs to reinvigorate the FCC to slow lies and sedition from Fox and other right-wing broadcasters. Fox News is now a seditious broadcaster, according to Max Boot of the Washington Post. I mean, this is insane. This is mad framing, right? The terrorism we saw on January the 6th may only be the beginning rather than the end of the plot against America. I'm telling you, they are going to call MAGA supporters terrorists. And it's going to be all of them. The ideas of patriotism themselves will become a form of terrorism. Lloyd Austin, who's a recently retired Army general who's been nominated for Secretary of Defense, has said, I'm going to rid our ranks of racists and extremists and commit to a climate where everyone fit and willing to serve can. Well, are racists and extremists not fit and willing to serve? Don't get me wrong. I don't think that the people you're talking about are actually racists and extremists. I think you're talking about Trump supporters, who I don't think are extremists and I don't think are racist. And you're saying that they're not going to be able to serve, but everyone else is going to be able to. So it's not right, okay. This leads us to a purge of the Pentagon, because, of course, they are paranoid that Trump loyalists are everywhere. As the New York Times reports, the Pentagon is intensifying efforts to identify and combat white supremacy and other far-right extremism in its ranks as federal investigators seek to determine how many military personnel and veterans joined the violent assault on the Capitol. The military's examination of its ranks marks a new urgency for the Pentagon, which had a history of downplaying the rise of white nationalism and right-wing activism, even as Germany and other countries finding deep strain embedded with their own armed forces. These people are not representative of our country's military, says General Mark A. Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, in an interview. He said that most active duty troops and veterans continue to serve honorably and uphold their oath to protect and defend the U.S. Constitution. And then we can go on to the militia that is currently occupying Washington, D.C. Apparently, after doing the background checks on the 25,000, they found that only 12 of them were linked to the militias. I mean, that surprises me, to be honest. I would have thought there would have been more.
And that doesn't mean they're terrorists, by the way. Or
Oh no,
extremists. They're just members of a militia.
It doesn't mean anything really. That's the thing, right? So 12 of these National Guard members have been removed from the inauguration security mission after they found to have ties with right-wing militia groups. According to Newsy, 2 guardsmen were removed for the security mission because of inappropriate texts and comments, and other reasons that were flagged to unrelated events to DC. CNN confirmed this, and 2 members that were pulled, Representative Tim Ryan, a Democrat from Ohio, said that the members were being pulled as a precaution and that they weren't necessarily in trouble and that they were no threat to President-elect Joe Biden. So why are you doing this then? If they're not in trouble and they're no threat, why would you be doing this?
Because Joe Biden's a paranoid nutjob.
Exactly.
Because inappropriate text. Well, give us an example. What's the example?
Well, we have that, right? So we can carry on this. If we go to the next one, this is a video. I'm not going to play the video, but again, it's as you can see, like the chief of staff going, National Guard individuals and their duties. They're vetting efforts that identify any questionable behavior in the past or any potential link to questionable behavior, not just related to extremism. And they're not even asking questions of it at the moment. So, what's a potential link to questionable behavior?
That is not extremism.
That is not extremism, yeah. Engaging in questionable behavior, questionable means iffy, right? It doesn't mean definitely bad or definitely good. It means questionable. We're not sure. As in it's indeterminate, right? And then a link to that, a link to indeterminate behavior, okay, that's tenuous, right? And then, but a link to questionable behavior that is a potential link, so not even the link to the behavior that isn't even illegal or wrong, is now enough for them to be like, yeah, well, get rid of those people.
They mentioned stuff on their phones.
Yep.
Like, is a Pepe the Frog image, is that enough? Because, if we're going this tenuous,
wow.
I bet the establishment takes the ADL position unquestioningly because they're idiots.
No doubt.
This is a hate symbol. Therefore, anyone who has a Pepe the Frog meme, are they needing to be removed from the military?
I guess so. Because, Jack Posobeic has a White House source, apparently, which I quite well believe in the same way that the New York Times does, or the Wall Street Journal, sorry. That says the NRA, Turning Point USA, and Patriot Guard Riders are 3 of many non-militia groups listed in the CID FBI list and are using cross-reference in vetting potential extremists.
Turning Point USA.
The Young Americans Foundation is also on the list. It's just like conservative, like Boy Scouts, basically. And they're looking at various Turning Point USA chapters in almost every university and high school, where there is one, and college-age soldiers already in. Investigators are also looking for the following in pictures: MAGA/CAG apparel, so Make America Great and Keep America Great, Gadsden flag, Confederate flag, NRA gear, and Q stuff. So literally MAGA and the Gadsden flag.
Any member of the National Rifle Association, or anyone who has the images of the National Rifle Association.
Yeah.
You're nuts.
What a dragnet
these
this
are people
is.
who signed up to be in the National Guard. What do you think their views are on gun rights are?
Do you think they approve of the Second Amendment or not? It's an easy question. Soldiers' Facebooks, Twitter, Instagrams, TikToks, and Snapchats are also being checked. Units from deep red states such as Texas are being thoroughly examined. Yep, I bet they are.
Why'd you get kicked out of the military? TikTok to meme.
Posted a Pepe on Instagram.
I liked the NRA on Facebook. Now they won't trust me.
Shared a Ben Shapiro Turning Point USA meme. Left-wing anarchist groups are also listed, but not a top priority. What a surprise. In fact, 0 have been investigated as of this evening. Leaders in both Army and FBI have directed attention on groups with strong conservative sentiments.
Nice.
The NCIS and a bunch of the alphabet agencies are also expecting to receive a directive from senior Department of Defense officials in the coming days that goes way beyond the inauguration. It won't magically stop after tomorrow.
So the military is being purged of anyone who has even the most tepid of conservative leavings. I mean, the NRA is not a officially partisan organization. It's
No.
just gun rights. I know there's an explicit left-wing one, but that's because the explicit left-wingers don't get along with the NRA.
Yeah.
Shock horror.
Because the left wingers are intolerant of the right wing.
But they mentioned the left-wing anarchist groups are also listed, but not top priority. I'd love to see that list.
Yeah.
Because I bet that's going to be actual extremists.
Oh, yeah.
And then compare that to the conservative ones. I bet it's not. I bet the leftist version of the NRA isn't on that list. for
No,
example.
of course not.
You know, I
But
bet Antifa isn't even on that list, even though they've engaged in terrorism.
I love it. You're gonna get purged for following Charlie Kirk on Twitter. But then and Twitter, I think.
Has anyone
does-
asked Charlie Kirk how he feels about this?
Well, not yet. I think Twitter does have an influence here because this is a clip from a representative, Steve Cohen, who decided to just speculate that actually maybe the problem is white men. Have we considered that the problem is white men?
I mean, if we're going off the basis that, if you have a Pepe meme, that's enough.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a white man, why not?
You support Trump, you're probably a white man, you're probably a terrorist. Let's watch.
This morning I was reading about this on my Twitter account, I guess, and people were reminding people of Anwar Sadat and Indira Gandhi, who were killed by their own people. I was thinking the Guard is 90 some odd %, I believe, male. Only about 20% of white males voted for Biden. You got to figure that in the Guard, which is predominantly more conservative, and I see that on my social media, and we know it, they're probably not more than 25% of the people that are there protecting us who voted for Biden. The other 75% are in the class that would be the large class of folks who might want to do something.
Now, he goes on in this interview to say that he's got no evidence whatsoever for this, but I found that really
what a
interesting.
shock.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously.
Got no evidence, but we're just going to do it.
Yeah, but I've noticed that the Guard is like 90% white male, and therefore white males mostly didn't vote for Biden, and therefore the people who are guarding us are actually dangerous. And it's like, okay, well, hang on a second. What you're saying here is that the security of the back of the Republic is on the backs of straight white men in America, right? So that's an interesting admission there. And it's interesting that you're like, actually, it's like, yeah, maybe you should think about what you're doing. But also, I love the way he's like, well, I was reading on my Twitter, I guess. And it's like, yes, exactly, right? This is your paranoid, delusional fever dream that has been arranged for you by your Twitter feed, your self-selected Twitter feed, on a platform that is just full of racists, open racists who just hate white men, who hate literally straight white men. They just hate that demographic of people. They're openly bigoted against them. And you, from your filtered Twitter feed, have now become paranoid about these very same people who took an oath to uphold your constitutional rights. Like, mad.
I just want to mention, I've actually seen him in Congress defending the attacks on the Portland courthouse as peaceful protesters who were beaten and gassed by Trump stormtroopers. And I'm like, okay, so this
Insane Twitter activist.
But there's the thing, like if he
In Congress.
we've always accepted, or at least in the last 20 years or 30 years or whatever,
Yeah.
it became accepted that what was it? Immutable characteristics, so being white, being male, being gay, whatever.
Yeah.
Like you can't do anything about it, therefore we'll leave it alone.
Yeah.
But we've completely gone inversion of that, and it's now if we can estimate that your characteristics mean you're a certain ideology, we can discriminate.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to see the guys who got sued for baking the cake, refusing. Could they turn around and say, well, actually, the majority of homosexuals vote for the Democrats. Therefore, we're not saying it's because you're homosexual, but because you're likely a Democrat.
Yeah, and we're allowed, since you're allowed to refuse us bank loans because we're conservatives.
Yeah, we're white men, therefore
Yeah.
you probably vote Trump, therefore no bank.
Yeah.
Like, that's where this line of logic leads.
Yeah, and it's not like we don't have like evidence that there is definitely a kind of bias when it comes to that. I mean, this is a clip from Black Lives Matter in DC in August 2020. So they're in Washington DC. This is before they started setting fire to everything, as you can tell by the lack of fires.
Well, after 4 years of riots and fires and
yeah,
murders
but
before.
during the George Floyd protests. Like, just listen to what he says here.
I'm at the point where I'm ready to put these police in the fucking grave. I'm at the point where I want to burn the fucking White House down. I want to take it to the senators. I want to take it to the Congress. I want to take the fight to them. And at the end of the day, if they ain't gonna hear us, we burn them the fuck down.
Tolerant.
Was there any concern? Where was the energy about the insurrectionists there when that was going on?
There was one. That senator literally said they were peaceful protesters in Portland.
Yeah.
They were bombing the courthouse, and he was like, yeah, those are peaceful protesters.
I mean, a bunch of them attacked the White House and forced Trump into a bunker.
Peaceful protesters.
It's insane. And yet no purge, no one who supports Black Lives Matter has been purged because of the violent activity of Black Lives Matter. The openly insurrectionist speeches and statements and actions.
I mean, the reverse, the Uno reverse of this would be Trump coming out and saying, well, the majority of Black Lives Matter's runners are all black, therefore we're going to expunge blacks from the military or something because they can't be trusted.
Imagine. Insane. It would be insane.
That's how bad what they're doing is here.
Yes. Open racial discrimination is going to be the order of the day. So like the fact that this is always one-sided is just naked and exposed, in my opinion. But one thing to finish this segment off that I found really interesting and genuinely shocked me, and when I first saw this, I only glanced over it and I put it in my notes as the reverse of what it actually was. I thought Rashida Talib, Congresswoman and squad member, was calling for increased powers. I thought she was essentially calling for a second Patriot Act, but actually she was arguing against it. I'm leading the call for national security powers not to be expanded. In the light of the attack on our nation's capital that occurred 2 weeks ago, such measures often lead to the erosion of American civil liberties. I was shocked to read that. And she actually has got a good argument in this. I won't go through it because it's just,
It doesn't match her rhetoric.
No, it doesn't, right? And I was just like, that's why I just wrote that down as, she's calling for another Patriot Act. She's actually against another Patriot Act. So, pat on the head, well done when you do something good. The US government's power to spy and persecute its own citizens. And this was, signed by Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, and whichever the new one was.
Oh, I know what this is.
Yeah.
This is the whole... Well, if we do expand it, then the next administration will use it against us because we're worse. We engage in more terrorism.
It's entirely possible that it's totally cynical. But well done to the squad for doing something that isn't awful. I'm as shocked as anyone else.